I la 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 la. I 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 la la. I la la. Did I did I die I lie I did I die I lie I did I die I did I lie I lie lie I lie lie I did I lie lie I la 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 lie I la la lie did it I lie lie I lie lie I la 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 lie I lie lie I la la lie did it I die I lie lie I did I die I lie lie I did I die I did I lie I lie lie I lie 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 I lie lie I. Thank you, Chaya, for all those hearts and thumbs up, and Shalom Aleichem to Zahava. Unfortunately, Arya is not here tonight because he's celebrating. And by chance, it happens to be tonight my 53rd birthday. Even though I have lots of white hair and many people think I'm older, I'm 53 years old. And my mother, who watches every week, Shalom Aleichem to my mother and Mazel Tov to her for giving birth to me. And so I figured, first of all, I want to give blessings to everybody who watches the lesson. Since on a person's birthday, their Mazel Gover means that the source of their heavenly energy increases. And so a person has the ability to bless. Shalom Aleichem to David. So I want to bless everyone. That Be'ezrat Hashem, first of all, everyone have good health, and anyone who's sick have a refuah shlema, and everyone have all the parnasa that they need to pay off any debts and to support themselves b'kavod, with honor, and that everybody in their own area in their life should have shalom bayit, should have peace in their home and their relationships, and we should grow in our Torah learning and our Torah living and our Torah teaching and our keeping of the mitzvot b'simcha, with joy. And that we should merit to love one another, Be'ezrat Hashem, in only the best and revealed way. So I was thinking, the first mention of a birthday, or maybe the only mention of a birthday in the Torah, is by Pharaoh. And Pharaoh had a big party for his birthday. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe mentions on a birthday, it actually showed up recently in a Yom Yom, that on a person's birthday it should be a day of reflection. That a person should look back on the year and their life and reflect and try to improve in the places where they can improve. And so for many years now, except for one year when the Kotel was shut down for COVID, and even then I went to the Kotel, so I go to the Kotel every year for my birthday. I'll go tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, and I say some Tehillim, I daven, and that's my excuse for making sure that I get to the Kotel once a year. Of course, when it was shut down during COVID, I went and I saw the Kotel, but they didn't let me come close to the Kotel because you needed a number and some silly system back then. And so if I look back at my life at this point, I can just thank Hashem really for all of the chesed that He's given me. And all of the times, Reb Shlomo has a Torah that he says, this is Rabbi Nachman. I have a chavuta that's learned Likutey Moharan his whole life, basically. And I told him this, he said he never heard of it before. So I mention it all the time at the end of my podcast in Hasidic Stories. He says when a person is really down and they feel like they can't get up, they're just totally broken and they can't break through. So Reb Shlomo, quoting Rabbi Nachman, probably more inspired by Rabbi Nachman, he says, what do you do? What do you do if you're so broken that you can't move? You can't even get up off the floor. You're just completely done. So Reb Shlomo says, you keep on davening. And he says, he talks about walking and sitting and getting up and all these different stages. He says, if a person wants to know how to walk, they have to first know how to get up. And if a person wants to be able to dance, they have to first know how to walk. And he goes into this whole procession. And he says, and what do you do if you're so broken? He says, you keep on walking, and you keep on singing, and you keep on davening, and you keep on dancing, and you keep on going until one day you realize that you thought that you fell, but you never actually fell, because Hashem never let you get that far down. And so that's really what it is every year. Whatever difficulties we have each year. Shalom Aleichem to Katie. I'm sharing some thoughts on my birthday, which is tonight. So all the blessings, as I mentioned in the beginning, Bezrat Hashem for you as well, Katie, and your husband and your daughter and future children, Bezrat Hashem. All the hardships that we go through in life, really the trick is to just keep on going. And I've had my own many personal hardships in life, and I can say on my birthday, looking back, that just kept on going. And even though I didn't know how I was going to pay for this thing or how I was going to get through that problem, in the end, Hashem pulled me through. So Be'ezrat Hashem, should have many more birthdays together. Everyone should be healthy. And now we're going to get back to learning our Chassidut. Now, we are in basically the thick of the forest as far as this lesson in Likutey Moharan goes. And what we're learning, we learned this concept of mateh vela mateh, of magia velo magia, of reaching Hashem and not reaching Hashem. He started off by saying, the elders of Athens asking Rabbi Yoshua ben Hananiah, where is the center of the universe? And he said, he took his finger and he said, right here. And they said, is that so? And he says, yes, bring chavalim, bring ropes and measure it, and you'll see that I'm right. And that's where we're heading towards. But then Rabbi Nachman goes and expands on this, and he says, what is the ultimate level of knowing? The ultimate level of knowing is knowing that you don't know. And so a person, for example, who studies a certain field of science or medicine or something technical, they can know the limitations of that thing. And they know it better than I know it. Astrophysics, I couldn't tell you the limitations of astrophysics, but I'm guessing a top astrophysicist could explain to me what are the limitations. And so what his knowledge brought him to, all of that knowledge in astrophysics brought him to the place of knowing what he doesn't know in a way that I couldn't personally know because I'm not there. So he says, so we can't grasp Hashem because Hashem is the Or Ein Sof, is the infinite light. So how you can't grasp the infinite light, but you can bring some of the infinite light down into this finite world. And by trying to grasp the infinite light, the infinite light, we are doing mateh vela mateh. We are doing reaching and not reaching. And the more we try to reach Hashem, who's infinite, and we realize how far away Hashem is, the more we get to know Hashem, which seems like a contradiction. You mean to tell me I'm trying to reach into the screen here, but as close as I get, I can't actually get into the screen? That's what he's saying. By the effort of reaching out, you're going to bring some of that infinite light into Hashem. And then he wants to explain through the sefirot, which is what we've been looking at. I have this chart here. We've been looking at the sefirot, and he's talking about this idea of malchut, which is the lowest of the sefirot, and malchut is also emuna. Emuna meaning faith in Hashem. And he's saying that the energy for malchut goes up through each of these levels. The first level is called the raglin, which is the feet. The second level is called the yadayim, which is the hands, and the third level, which reaches up to the top, is called the mochin, which is the sechel, which is the intellect and also the crown. This is just to symbolize the spiritual energy that's going on. What's special about Malchut is that it's here at the bottom. All of the energy from the different sefirot, they go down into Malchut. Malchut itself doesn't have any energy of its own, but it receives from all of them. So if Malchut means sovereignty, it means kingship. So imagine a king without a nation is not much of a king, right? We have in Iran the Shah's son, who's now the new Shah. And the Shah doesn't have any power if he's not the head of Persia or Iran. So being a king without having a kingdom is not worth very much. Once a king does have a kingdom, then all of the power below the king, in a sense we could flip this over, and we could say that when Malchut is receiving all of the energy from above, it now has all of the energy. So what is Malchut? Malchut is Emunah. And when a person has faith in this world, where Hashem is so hidden, and life is so difficult, you actually send all of the energy up through the different sefirot, and it comes back down below. So you're sending the energy up to heaven, up to the closest place that we can reach Hashem in this physical world, and then it's coming back down. And we said that's through a bracha. A bracha means to draw down the energy. So now Rabbi Nachman is going to go into the fine details of this, and I'm going to hopefully explain it in a way that will make sense to you. לאחר שביאר שכיצד כל מדרגה נמוכה מלבישה את המדרגה העליונה ממנה, after explaining that each level of the sefirot goes up and enclose the other one, in a sense they're going up like this until it reaches, I didn't fold it properly here. Let's see if that does it. In a sense like this. Malchut is coming up and up and up into all of the other sefirot. This is the power of your prayer going up to Hashem. He says after we explained that the energy down below goes up above, ubezeh sfirat malchut gedela, and in that way the attribute of Malchut grows because it's expanding into all of the energies above it. Ki metchila kibla raglin v'achar kach yadin v'achar kach mochin. Because first it received the legs, and then it received the hands, and then it received the mind, the intellect. And that's what he's going to say. That when we get this connection with the infinite light of Hashem, it first comes to our feet, which is the lowest level, then it comes to our hands, which is the medium level, and then it comes to our intellect, which is the highest level. Yiva'er ata et hamadriga hagvu'ah mikol zeh is now going to talk about the highest level of all of these, v'hi b'chinat emunah. That's the attribute of emunah. Emunah, we said, is faith. But we said that faith was Malchut, was the lowest level. And now he's saying, but Malchut's going to go to the highest level, to Keter. Because it's going up through this, and through this, and through this. It's coming all the way up until it reaches, if I can do this, something like that. And so Malchut becomes elevated through all of these levels. In a sense, you can think about when you do a mitzvah and you have an inspiration in doing the mitzvah, it starts on the lowest level. Let's take, for example, a person wants to keep Shabbos. They say, okay, I'm going to keep Shabbos on a higher level now. Instead of just buying cans and opening up at the table, now I'm going to buy fresh food and I'm going to cook it. Because I want my food to be elevated. I want to have a higher level of food. So that's the raglin. The yadayim would be when you're actually eating the food and you're putting the food in your body, and now you're feeling a higher level of elevating this food and receiving the abundance coming from above. And the third level would be when you intellectually understand that the eating that you're doing on Shabbos is all kodesh, is all holiness. where even though we're eating because our body is asking for food, we're really eating because our soul is asking to elevate something physical and turn it into something spiritual. Because we're commanded to eat 3 meals on Shabbos, we're not commanded to eat during the week. A person can fast all week, but they can't fast on Shabbos, unless it's Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is a Shabbat Shabbaton. It's a Shabbos of Shabboses, so then you're allowed to fast. And so the eating that we do on Shabbos is on this very high level. And when you connect the deciding to elevate the cooking on Shabbos is manchut. That's the lowest level. You bring it into the raglin, you bring it into netzach hod yesod, which is this level over here, netzach hod yesod. That's already purchasing the food. Chesed, gvura, tiferet is the level when you're actually eating the food, and chokhmah, bina, and there's really should be da'at here in the middle. That and that leads to keter. That's when you understand that the food that you're eating is kodesh. That is essentially what's happening here, and it's just being explained with these symbols. Okay, so now we have Yive'erata et madriga gvura me'akol, v'hi b'chinat emunah, the highest level is emunah, shetzarich la'amshich ota el hamochin. You have to bring up that lowest level of emunah into the highest level, which is mochin, which is keter, which is your intellect. Meaning that you're taking this decision that you made to do a mitzvah on a higher level, and you're elevating it to the point of your intellect. You have to draw your faith, which is also your initial inspiration in doing a mitzvah on a higher level, into the blessing, or birkat hasechel would also be drawing down Hashem's energy into your intellect. Ki ein lismoch al hasechel ba'atzmo kayadua, because we don't want to solely rely on our intellect as it's known, right? Because if a person relies on their intellect, they can fool themselves. Ki lifamim davka al yedei rov sechel efshar la'agir la'apikosot v'kfira. It could be that through a person's great intellect, they can reach a place of apikorsut, is when you use your Torah knowledge in order to convince people that the Torah is wrong. And here, what is it called? Kfira is hearsay, not hearsay, heresy. Thank you. Ukamo shekatav Rabbeinu Kaman, as Rabbi Nachman Ropolov, Zel Shono, that's in Tinyana, to part 2 of Likutey Moharan, Yud Bet, lesson 12. Kshe'adam holech achar sichlo v'chokhmato, when a person simply follows their intellect and their understanding of the world, yuchal lipol b'ta'uyutim u'michsholot rabim. A person can fall into all kinds of traps and mistakes, v'lavo lidei ra'ot gedolot chas v'shalom, and to make serious mistakes that will bring them to bad places, God forbid. V'yeshekin kulu harbei kagon reshaim gedolim ma'od mefursamim, and there are those that have really messed up other people, like some very famous evil people, shehitu et ha'olam, that they even fooled the whole world. V'akol haya al yedei chokhmatam v'sichlam, and all of it was through their intellect and their understanding of the world. And now we're experiencing that right now today, because it appears that most of the world, at least the governments of the world, are against us. Even though we were the ones that were attacked on October 7th, and maybe the war is not being run the best way that it's being run, but instead of pressuring the Palestinians, we're the ones that are being pressured. Because just you base it solely on emotion. So you say to somebody, who's the oppressed person? They say, oh, the underdog, and that's it. So if you just use your intellect can bring you to places that you don't want to be. Also, there's a lesson, there's a story that I've told from my teacher, Reb Shalom, that when he was in college in Montreal, so he had a roommate who had all of these power tools. And he said to his roommate once, how do you have all these power tools when you don't have any money? And he said, it's very simple. There's a hardware store down the street. He said, no. And he said, well, I have a big coat, so I just steal things from the hardware store. So he says, well, how can you possibly justify that? He says, what do you mean? I'm keeping the owner of the hardware store honest, because the owner knows that people are going to steal things, so he adds another 10% to the price. But if nobody steals anything, then he's stealing from all the customers by adding 10% on the price. So by me stealing, I'm keeping the owner of the store honest. So this is a way that intellect can make you think that stealing something is actually doing something good. Ve'ikar hayadut hu rak lelech b'tmimut u'pshitut. What is the essence of Judaism is to go with simplicity and innocence, bli shum chokhmot, without any sophistication. Chokhma ken, chokhmot lo. This is what my chavruta says all the time. Use your brain, yes, but don't try to be over-sophisticated, because in the end you'll trip yourself up. And to look at everything that a person does, instead of relying on your intellect, you should look at everything that you do and find Hashem there. Ad kan leshono, that's the end of that lesson there. Od katav sham chokhmot ein tzrichim klal. He wrote also in Torah Mem Chet that you don't need any of these super sophisticated ways of thinking at all. Rak emunah utmimut upshitut bli shum chokhma klal. Just to serve Hashem with simplicity and innocence without any sophistication at all. Now I'll just give you a hint, even though it might be a few weeks till we get there. We're going to move on next to lesson Samach Daled, which is over here. And there he goes into this idea even deeper. He talks about what are things that you can learn, what are things that you shouldn't learn, and having emunah, having faith in Hashem, and how learning things that you shouldn't learn can bring you to a place of total apikursut, of finding arguments against the Torah. Now, a simple one of these chokhmot is a person can ask the question, how is it that Hashem, who's all good, would create the Holocaust and murder 6 million Jews? How does that make any sense? So that's a question that is very hard to answer. You can't answer it because we don't understand why Hashem would do something like that. You can find all kinds of sub-answers. We know that it says in Pirkei Avot, I don't remember the words, da ichlanot la'apikos. You should know how to answer a heretic. But not just a heretic that comes and asks you questions, but also the heretic within yourself. When you're asking yourself certain questions, you should know that you have to be able to answer yourself. So regarding the Torah and regarding the Holocaust, there are many people that came out of the Holocaust and became total atheists. And there are many people who came out of the Holocaust and became even more religious. So if you want to find, that's really the bottom line, if you want to find God in the Holocaust, you can find him there. And if you want to find God missing from the Holocaust, you can find him missing from the Holocaust. And that's the meaning of going rak emunah utmimut upshitut bli shum chokhma klal. That's the meaning of it. Like if you're going to look at the Holocaust and start to probe, why did God do what he has to do? If you come with a place of wanting to criticize Hashem, you'll find lots of reasons to criticize Hashem. But if you come with the pshitut tmimut, with the simplicity and innocence, and with the basis of emunah and trust in Hashem, then you will find miracle stories in the Holocaust that will inspire you. So on the one hand, somebody could look at the Holocaust and it would break their faith and they would stop being religious altogether. And on the other hand, a person can look at the Holocaust and it will increase their faith and they would want to become more religious. So it all depends on how you approach it. And that's the meaning of what he's saying here. Ki chokhmot mezikim ma'od la'adam. This thing of playing these intellectual games and trying to understand why Hashem does things, they can really trip up a person. They can cause a lot of damage. Ve'chachamim nilkatim b'chokhmatam shel atzmam. And the sophisticated people in that way are caught up in their own wisdom. Ki chokhma ma'ata ota mechokhma la'chokhma. Because one question like that will confuse a person, and then from one sophisticated question to another sophisticated question. Umeota chokhma lechokhma acheret, and from one chokhma to another chokhma. V'chein lechokhma yoter v'yoter. And you're going to now go more and more and more into this. Ad shenilkad v'nit'eh b'chokhmot atzmo. And until a person gets completely caught up in these questions and asking questions on top of questions. B'bchinat, and this is connected to, as is written in Eov, Loched chachamim be'armam. And he says, sophisticated people can trap others with their cunning. Be'armam davka, with cunning, hainu be'armimiyut, with their sophisticated cunning. V'chokhmot, and also wisdom, like a confusing wisdom, shelahem batzmam ulochedotam. It traps those people. Ashrei ha'olech b'tmimiyut, blessed are those that go with innocence. And of course, you remember the story of the chacham and the tam, the sophisticate and the simpleton. And the whole story is about the simpleton always saying, listen, I don't have any questions, these big questions. And the sophisticate is saying, have you ever seen the king? Does anyone know who the king is? And eventually the sophisticate ends up, his whole life falls to shambles. The simpleton ends up becoming the prime minister. And in the end, he helps his friend, the sophisticate, to get out of this loop of sophisticated thinking, and eventually brings him to a place of simple faith in Hashem. וזה בבחינת הכתוב, איש אמונות רב ברכות. And this is connected to what's written in Mishlei, that a person that has a lot of faith has a lot of blessings. כי צריך להמשיך אמונה לתוך רוב הברכה שהיא ברכת השכל. You have to draw down. So emuna, we talked about emuna before, being on the lowest level. You have to draw, he's saying draw down. You have to draw it basically up into your intellect. You have to draw emuna into your intellect. So that, what does that mean? That means that when you're faced with a problem and you're able to look at it on the level of emuna, basically you're saying, Hashem, okay, I understand that I have this problem. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to trust that you're going to somehow figure it out. Here, I'm looking at Shabbos, this Shabbos. So there are different times during the week, sometimes during the month. Sometimes there's money for the Shabbos meals, no problem. Sometimes it's a little bit of a squeeze. And this Shabbos, we happen to have my niece and I think 2 or 3 of her friends, and my son and 2 or 3 of his friends, and then something like 8 guests that I invited because I didn't know these people were coming, and then our family as well. And most of these people are going to be there for both meals, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to feed all these people with very little money. And so at some point I get to it and I just say, Hashem, somehow it's going to work out. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how I'm going to feed everyone, but somehow it'll work out. That's a level of emunah. Even though I will have to figure out the details of what to buy and how to cook and what to make, that if I were to freak myself out by this, then I wouldn't have emunah. But if I look at it on a level of emunah, I say, look, I know that somehow Hashem is going to figure it out. Hashem is going to figure out how much food, and everybody's going to be happy with the food that they have, and whatever it is, we'll figure it out. That's taking the approach of emunah, and that's ish emunot rab brachot. The person that has a lot of emunah gets a lot of brachas. And that's the birkat hasechel. That's the blessing in your brain and your intellect. Kamo b'bchinat hakatuv b'melchemet Amalek al yadav shel Moshe. And as it's written in the battle with Amalek regarding the hands of Moshe, this is from Sefer Shemot, Vayihi yadav emunah. Moshe's hands were on the level of emunah. We know that Moshe's hands were held up, and as they were being held up, the Jewish people were winning the battle, and when they would fall down, they would stop. His hands had reached the level of emunah, meaning that he was able to transmit emunah and blessings through his hands. And of course, we know that the Kohanim give the blessing through their hands. And the parents, when they bless their children on Friday night, give the blessing through their hands. V'zoi gam b'chinat davar. Did I get that? Okay. Vayhi emunah. Ki Moshe Rabbeinu zacha la'amshich emunah letoch birkat hasechen haba me'ayadayim. That Moshe Rabbeinu was on the level that he was able to bring down, or bring up, in a sense, emunah, faith, through the feet, to the hands, into the brain, and into the intellect. And as he did that, he was able to transmit this faith to the Jewish people through his hands. V'zoi gam b'chinat davar Shaul leDavid, and this is related to King Saul to King David. And of course you know that Shaul wanted to kill King David for many years. He did his best to kill him, and it didn't work. Hine yadati ki maloch timloch, and he says in Sefer Shmuel that here I know that you're going to rule. V'kama biyadcha mamlechet Yisrael, and I can see through your hands is going to come about the kingdom of Israel, of the Jewish people. Hainu sheyamshich David emunah letoch birkat hayadayim. That is, that David would be on the level that he would be able to bring emunah, faith, into his hands. Ki malchut b'chinat emunah, because malchut, which is the lowest level of the sefirot, is on the level of emunah. Vehu yamshich ota letoch b'chinat biyadcha. So we're talking about malchut being on this lower level. It's going up to raglin, to the feet. It's going up to the hands, to this level, and it's going up to sechel over here. And he's just giving text proofs to prove his point. Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit of this because that's the idea. He's bringing it up. V'zeh shenimshechet birkat ha'emunah el hasechen, that when emunah is brought up into the brain, hainu lemochin chokhmah bina v'dat, that is into your intellect. Into chokhmah bina v'dat are three levels of understanding. We have chokhmah, which are facts, bina, which is synthesizing several facts to reach using one thing to understand another thing, that's bina, and dat is the highest level, which is seeing Hashem's hand in the world. V'zeu mevo'ar b'kavanot sheb'chinat manchut yitzira. So now he's talking about, okay, this is really fascinating. He's saying that here we're going up through these different levels of the sefirot. We're going from malchut on this lowest level, and we're reaching keter. And we're doing that through doing a mitzvah with simcha, with joy. And we're sending the spiritual energy up through these sefirot. And we're talking about olam asiyah, this world down here below. What happens when you get to the next world? So the emunah, the malchut that's on the bottom, reaches keter, and then, I'm just going to pretend the paper's still here, it goes up to the malchut of the next world. And so each of the four worlds, you're sending that inspiration of doing a mitzvah with joy up and up and up and up. Sefirot chokhmah bina v'dat ha'asiyah shel olam asiyah. So you're sending it up to the highest level of this world. Ki sfirat ha'malchut shel olam ha'yatzira yoredet u'malbisha b'chokhmah bina v'dat shel olam asiyah. So that's what we're saying. That the malchut goes up through all the sefirot. It reaches all the way up to keter, and then keter jumps to the next world and connects with malchut on the bottom, and then goes through all the sefirot, and then connects with the next world, and the next world, and the next world. And each of these worlds, as it's going up, it's reaching a higher and a higher place closer to Hashem. Hainu, but okay, so that he's just going to say the same thing here. Le'achar shehishlim leva'er. We're going to go for maybe 5 more minutes or so, and then we'll continue next week. B'ezrat Hashem. Let's see how far we can get here. Le'achar shehishlim leva'er tikun sefirot olam asiyah ad hamochin. After he completed to explain, Rabbi Nachman completed to explain how the tikkun, the order of the sefirot, of the energy of the world of asiyah, the world of action down here below, reaches the intellect. V'hosiv shetikun hamochin hu al yedei b'chinat bracha. And how is the fixing of the intellect done? through bracha, which is a blessing, which is bringing down Hashem's energy down into this world. Shehi b'chinat emunah. And how does it come about? It comes about through emunah. Where does the blessing come through? The blessing comes through your faith. When you have emunah, you create a conduit in order to receive bracha, in order to receive a little bit of the Ein Sof, of the infinite light in this world. You have to have emunah to do it, and you have to have emunah b'simcha, emunah with joy, emunah on such a high level that you're not worried, and that you're not thinking about it all the time. And it's a battle. And in order to reach that place, you have to really constantly be giving over to Hashem. I don't know, I guess everybody's different. This is how it works in my brain. I have a problem, I think about it again, I give it over to Hashem. It comes right back. I think about it again, I give it over to Hashem. And by doing this, when I finally reach a point where I can simply let it go and let Hashem have it, that creates a bracha, a way for Hashem to give me things in this world through my faith that I couldn't have had otherwise. So it's coming down through the worlds, as mentioned above. Okay, so I don't know if I want to get, how deep I want to get into this, because he's talking now about how the blessing is coming down into this world, into each level of the energy. I don't want to get too stuck in this because it can get very dense, but there is a point that he has here. Okay, so let's go a little further down here. B'chinat ma'amar kadosh baruch hu liYitzchak Avinu, regarding what Hashem said to Yitzchak our father, ve'ehiyeh imcha ve'avarcheka, I will be with you and I will bless you. Kadosh baruch hu itgala liYitzchak b'shem ehiyeh. Hashem revealed himself with the name I will be. Misham birech oto, and from that place he blessed him. Ki yadua sechel sham mashmuto shel Hashem yitbarach ukeneged sefira mesuyemet. I'm just reading this quickly to get to a point. V'sham eyeh hu keneged sfirat haketer. Im kein mevo'ar b'pasuk zeh shemisham eyeh hainu keter ba bacha. Okay, so he's saying, where is the blessing coming down to this world? Here it is again. Doing the mitzvah with joy and having faith down here below. It's going all the way up to keter. Now it's going through the next world and the next world and the next world, and keeps on going until it reaches Hashem. Then Hashem is sending it back down into this world. And when it comes into this, imagine all of this is in this world of Asiyah, it begins at Keter. Begins at this level of the crown, Shehu Lashon Hamtana. Whoops, I skipped it. So, Im Ken Mivo'ar Pasuk Shemisham Keter Hainu Bacha. Va'atam Kanal, and the reason is mentioned above, Ki Keter Mekeben B'chinat Dakut Habracha. Okay, so I want to skip going into so much detail here. Here's the point. V'yitzchak hu al shem tzchok v'simcha. So now he says he's bringing this idea of Keter, the highest level, and he's giving the example of Yitzchak. Why? Because Yitzchak expresses laughing and joy. As is explained above in section 2, Ki al yedei asiyat ha-mitzvah v'simcha nishlemet ha-kedusha. Holiness is completed and elevated when a person does a mitzvah with joy. So a person could do a mitzvah without joy, and in a sense they're doing the mitzvah, but they're not elevating it to the highest place. We're taking the mitzvah out of this dark, black, evil place. Right? We're talking about shbirat kelim, the breaking of the vessels. Hashem sends this infinite light into a finite world. The world doesn't have the vessels to handle the light. The light is broken up and it's hidden amongst the evil energy in the world. The evil energy, and this light is kedusha. This light is holiness, and the evil energy of the world is drawing its sustenance from the light, from the holiness, from the kedusha. So when we do a mitzvah, B'simcha, with joy, we're elevating that from the lowest places. I'll just give you the simplest example. A person's walking on the street, they never put on tefillin in their entire life. They see some Chabadnik standing by the road. He says, hey, you want to put on tefillin? The guy's like, I'm Jewish, but I never put on tefillin. He puts on tefillin, he says a blessing, and afterwards he feels like something happened to him. That is elevating Kedusha from amongst the klipot, from the negative energy. Because that person, for their entire life, never did the mitzvah of putting on tefillin. And the moment that they did, they took the negative energy. They were a spark of holiness, but they were stuck in the negative energy, and they connected it to Kedusha, they connected it to holiness, and they elevated it. And then when a person starts putting on tefillin, for example, every day, or lighting candles every Shabbos, or saying Birkot HaShachar, or saying the morning blessings, or giving a coin every morning when they wake up after they say Modeh Ani, whatever it is. So at first, you're just elevating that spark from a place of darkness. But afterwards, you're starting to do it with joy. And when you get into the repetition of doing it with joy, az zochim l'shleimut asimcha, and then you reach the highest level of keter, and then the completion of doing the mitzvah with joy, and that's what we're going to continue next week. Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, I'm just going to mark this right over here. It's getting complicated because what we're doing is we're doing the mateh v'la mateh. We're trying to understand how Hashem comes into this world through the sefirot, through the energy attributes. And I have a feeling that I'm going to just skip a few sections because they're going to get very dense until we finally get to a place where we can pull it all together. But as I'm going over it, I'm trying to explain it in a way that keeps it together, hopefully. Bezat Hashem. Okay, so I have a little story for you. This is a story about two of the sons of the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he sent his youngest son, Reb Shmuel, who eventually became the Rebbe Maharash, and one of his other sons, who was his other son? Traveling with his older brother, Reb Yehuda Leib. Okay, the two of them were going together, and Reb Shmuel was 20 years younger than Reb Yehuda Leib. And before they went on their trip, they were going on a trip to Petersburg to try to convince the government to rescind a decree against the Jewish community. And as they're traveling, Reb Shmuel told his older brother, Reb Yehuda Leib, not to bless anyone during their trip because only their father, the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, should be blessing people. And so Reb Yehuda Leib agreed. And as they went from town to town, of course, people recognized them as the sons of the great Rebbe. And they also figured that the sons of the Rebbe are also pretty holy. And they would ask for blessings for livelihood, for children, for health, whatever it was. And every time they asked Reb Yehuda Leib, he'd say, go to my father the Rebbe, and for sure he'll bless you. They reached a particular town. There was a woman who was very persistent. She'd been married for many years, and she never had any children. And she wanted a blessing, and she told Reb Yehuda Leib, please, you have to give me a blessing. So she begged and pleaded, screamed and cried that he must bless her with children. But Reb Yehuda Leib said, no, go to my father, and he'll bless you. But this woman wasn't happy with his answer. And she continued until finally he said, go to my brother, Reb Shmuel. Maybe he'll bless you. So this woman goes to Reb Shmuel and she begs and pleads and cries and screams that she wants to have children, but nothing would move Reb Shmuel, because of course he was the one that said to his older brother, Reb Yehuda Leib, not to bless anyone. And at some point they realized they weren't going to get rid of this woman, so Reb Shmuel says to his brother, tell the driver to get ready, and when I jump in the carriage, we're out of here. And he jumps in the carriage, he tells the driver, go, but the carriage doesn't go anywhere because this woman had stuck a big stick in the axle and the wheel wouldn't move. So Reb Shmuel, he jumps out of the carriage and he's very upset and he's trying to pull the stick out. And the woman says, no, give me a blessing. And he says to her, go eat a bagel. which apparently in Yiddish at the time was the equivalent of go jump in the lake. And she was happy with this. And she pulls the stick out, and she says, "Thank you, Rebbe." And he gets back in the wagon, and he drives away. And this woman, she goes back home, and she starts making bagels. And she's kneading the dough, and she's making sure that she separates the what needs to be separated for it, the afrashat challah, and she makes the bagels, and she boils them, and she makes a whole bunch of bagels for her whole family, and then she takes the bagel and she says, a bracha motilechem min haaretz, with the kavanah, with the intention of fulfilling the Rebbe's son's blessing of go eat a bagel. So she eats the bagel. And then she eats another bagel, because she wants to make sure that the blessing really comes true. And a year later, hey, Levi Yitzchak, I'm almost done. A year later, she goes to the Tzemach Tzedek, and she goes straight to, but I see that Tzemach Tzedek passed away. And Reb Shmuel was who was the youngest of the 7 sons, he was chosen to succeed the Rebbe. And this woman comes into Reb Shmuel's study with a cake, and with actually 2 cakes. It wasn't a man, it's not the woman. The man comes into the study with 2 cakes. And he says to the Rebbe, "These are in thanks for the blessing that you gave my wife last year, that she would have a child. She asked me to bring you these cakes to show her gratitude." So Reb Shmuel didn't remember this at all. And so the man says, "You remember my wife? She stuck the stick in the axle. And you said to my wife, go eat a bagel." So that's what she did. She ate a bagel. And she was blessed with a child. I'm going to tell us on the podcast eventually. And so the Rebbe said, "But why you bring me 2 cakes?" He said, "Well, my wife wanted to make sure that the blessing was going to happen, so she ate 2 bagels, and she had twins." And then Reb Shmuel said to the husband, "You should know that I saw there was a decree in heaven that you and your wife were not going to have any children. And it was just out of desperation that I told you, go eat a bagel." I told her to go eat a bagel. It didn't mean there was going to be a blessing. But because of your wife's simple faith in Hashem, pshitut utmimut, simple faith in Hashem, her strong faith in the tzaddik, the decree was annulled, and you and your wife were blessed with children. So that's exactly what we were learning tonight. That when a person, ish emunot rav bachot, a person that has a lot of emunah, allows Hashem to cancel decrees and bring down blessings. And Be'ezrat Hashem, yes, you can eat a bagel now. Kind of scared to eat a bagel now? Eat bagels, eat lots of bagels. Don't worry, Zahava. The decree doesn't have to be for having a baby. I'll bless you, even though I'm not a Rebbe, and I'm not even a Rebbe's son, but I am a storyteller of Rebbe's, so I'll bless you and everybody else who wants to eat a bagel. Whatever you ask for, Be'ezrat Hashem, it should come true. The bottom line is emunah, have emunah, and trust in Hashem, and I bless you and bless me back that we should all be successful in doing it. Shesha koach, everyone, for sticking around, and thank you for listening, and we'll continue again next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. Sei gesund.